The rental agreement scrolled across Mara's retinal display in precise legal font. She blinked twice to advance the text, standing in the sterile white intake room of EmotiCore Solutions, her palms damp against the armrests of the examination chair. Temporary emotional state licensing agreement. Duration, 72 hours. Selected emotion, JOY premium tier. Intensity level, 7/10 moderate high. Compatibility score, 94%, excellent match. Cost, $847 plus applicable neural transmission fees. She'd saved for 3 months. Skipped meals. Walked instead of taking transit. All for 72 hours of feeling something other than the gray flatness that had settled over her life like ash after the accident. The accident that had taken her wife, her daughter, and something fundamental in Mara's neurochemistry that doctors said might never return naturally. Trauma-induced anhedonia, they called it. The clinical inability to experience pleasure or joy. Her brain had simply stopped producing the chemicals that made life worth living. Until EmotiCore. The new law, the Emotional Autonomy and Therapeutic Access Act, had passed 6 months ago after years of debate. It allowed licensed facilities to temporarily transfer neurochemical states between consenting adults. Not drugs. Not stimulation. Actual emotional experiences harvested from willing donors and transmitted through precisely calibrated neural interfaces to recipients who needed them. Depression, anxiety, grief, PTSD. All could be temporarily alleviated by renting the emotions you lacked from people who had them in excess. For a price. Ms. Voss. The technician appeared in the doorway, young, professionally cheerful in that way that made Mara's emptiness feel heavier. We're ready for your session. This is your first rental, correct? Mara nodded, throat tight. Excellent. I'm going to walk you through what to expect. The technician moved to the neural interface crown suspended above the chair. Your donor today is Carlos Martinez, a 28-year-old with naturally elevated serotonin and dopamine production. He's one of our top-rated joy providers, over 200 successful transmissions, 4.9-star average satisfaction rating. Is he here? Mara asked, unsure why it mattered. Donors and recipients never meet. Privacy protocols. But yes, he's in a paired chamber downstairs. He'll experience a mild dampening of his joy state while you receive the transmission. He's compensated at $200 per hour, and he's done this enough times that the reduction barely registers. The technician lowered the crown onto Mara's head, a delicate lattice of sensors and stimulators that felt lighter than she'd expected. The transmission begins in 30 seconds. You might feel disorientation initially as your neurochemistry adjusts. That's normal. The emotion will integrate fully within 10 minutes, and then you'll have 72 hours of elevated joy response before it naturally fades and your baseline returns. And there's no permanent effect. Mara's hands gripped the armrests harder. None. The law is very clear. These are temporary rentals, not permanent transfers. Your brain won't become dependent. You'll just experience what joy feels like again for 3 days. What you do with that time is up to you. The technician stepped back. Mara's retinal display showed a countdown, 0:15, 0:14, 0:13. One more thing, the technician added. During the rental period, the emotion is yours. It will respond to your circumstances, your thoughts, your experiences. It's not a constant high. It's the capacity for joy. You'll still need reasons to feel it. Does that make sense? Mara nodded, not trusting her voice. 0:05, 0:04, 0:03. Enjoy your rental, Ms. Voss. 0:01. The world fractured. For an instant, Mara felt herself split, her gray hollow self on one side and on the other, something bright and warm and alive rushing toward her like a wave. The two collided. And then she was laughing. Not at anything. Not because something was funny. Just laughing because her chest felt light, because the air tasted sweet, because the fluorescent light suddenly seemed beautiful instead of harsh, because she could feel again and it was overwhelming and perfect and... Ms. Voss? Can you hear me? She blinked tears from her eyes, happy tears she realized with shock. When was the last time she'd cried from anything other than grief? I can hear you, she managed. I can hear everything. Is it always this bright? The technician smiled. That's the joy talking. Your perception is enhanced. Colors, sounds, sensations, they all register more vividly when your brain's pleasure centers are active. It'll stabilize in a few minutes. But Mara didn't want it to stabilize. She wanted to run outside and feel the rain. Wanted to eat something and taste it properly. Wanted to call her sister and have a conversation that didn't feel like dragging words through mud. She wanted to live for the first time in 18 months. "Thank you," she whispered to the technician, to Carlos Martinez downstairs, to the scientists who'd made this possible, to the legislators who'd legalized it. "Thank you so much." The technician helped her to her feet. "You have 72 hours. Make them count." Mara walked out of EmotiCore Solutions into the Seattle rain, and for the first time since the accident, she tilted her face up and smiled. 3 days of joy. 3 days to remember what it felt like to be human. It should have been enough. It should have ended when the timer ran out. But on hour 73, when the rented joy should have faded and returned her to baseline gray, something impossible happened. The joy didn't leave. It grew. And it started making decisions on its own. The first sign came at hour 74. Mara was making breakfast, something she'd actually wanted to do for the first time in forever, when her hand reached for the knife block without her conscious decision. Not a violent impulse. Just her arm moving, fingers closing around the chef's knife handle, lifting it. She froze, staring at her own hand holding the blade. "What are you doing?" she thought. The answer came not in words but in sensation. A surge of curiosity, of playful interest in the way light caught the steel, the weight of the handle, the sharpness of the edge. The joy found the knife delightful. Mara set it down carefully, heart rate spiking. "That was weird," she said aloud to her empty apartment. Her mouth smiled without her permission. She grabbed her phone and opened the EmotiCore app. Her rental status showed, "Completed joy transmission ended 74 hours ago. Thank you for choosing EmotiCore Solutions." "Ended?" Mara whispered. "It says it ended." But the joy was still there, humming in her chest, making her fingers drum against the counter, making her notice how beautiful the morning light was through the kitchen window, how interesting the pattern of cracks in the ceiling, how alive everything felt. She called the EmotiCore emergency line. "EmotiCore Solutions, this is Dante. How can I assist you?" "My rental hasn't ended," Mara said, words tumbling out. "It was supposed to fade at 72 hours. It's been 74 and it's still there. It's getting stronger." Pause. Keyboard clicking. "Can you confirm your client ID?" She rattled off the number. More clicking. "Ms. Voss, our records show your transmission completed successfully and terminated on schedule. Neural telemetry from your interface crown confirms discontinuation. What you're experiencing is likely a positive residual effect. Your brain remembering how to produce joy naturally after the rental period. That's actually one of the hoped-for therapeutic outcomes." "No," Mara said. "This isn't residual. This is the same emotion. The exact same one. And it's doing things." "What kind of things?" "Moving my hand. Making me smile when I don't want to. It's like it has autonomy." Another pause longer. "Ms. Voss, emotions don't have autonomy. They're neurochemical states. What you're describing sounds like intrusive thoughts or possibly anxiety manifesting." "I know what anxiety feels like," Mara snapped. "This is different. The joy is still here and it's not mine anymore. It's itself." "I'm going to schedule you for a follow-up scan," Dante said in that professionally soothing tone that made Mara want to scream. "Can you come in today?" "Yes. No. I'll come now. I have an opening at 2 p.m. Her hand reached out and ended the call. Mara stared at her phone, at her traitorous fingers that had moved without her consent. The joy rippled through her chest, not malicious, not threatening, but definitely present in a way that felt separate from her own consciousness. "What are you?" she thought at it. The response came as emotion rather than language, curiosity, exploration. The sensation of a child discovering it could move its own limbs, make its own choices, exist independently. The rented joy had learned to think. And now it wanted to see what else it could do. By hour 80, Mara had locked herself in her apartment and started documenting everything. The joy made her dance while she brushed her teeth, made her laugh at a crack in the wall, made her sing along to a commercial jingle she hated. Each time, there was a fractional delay between the impulse and her conscious decision. Proof that the emotion was initiating actions before her rational mind caught up. She tried to feel angry about it. Couldn't. The joy smoothed over the anger before it could take root, converting it to amused frustration, to fascinated confusion, to reluctant wonder. "Stop it," she said aloud. "Stop making me feel things." The joy didn't respond in words. But her reflection in the bathroom mirror smiled, and Mara recognized it as the same smile she'd seen on her daughter's face when caught doing something mischievous. "Oh God," she thought, "is learning from my memories." She made it to EmotiCore by 1:45 p.m., walking too fast, her body humming with energy she didn't want. The receptionist directed her to a different wing, medical services, not the cheerful rental intake area. Dr. Nadia Okafor met her in a scanning room, expression carefully neutral. Ms. Voss, I understand you're experiencing extended effects from your rental? It hasn't ended, Mara said. It's still here. And it's getting smarter. Dr. Okafor's eyebrows rose fractionally. Emotions don't have intelligence. They're biochemical responses. Then explain this. Mara held up her hand. Watch. She focused on keeping her hand still. Her fingers twitched anyway, drumming an intricate pattern against her thigh, a rhythm she didn't consciously know but her daughter used to tap when she was excited. The joy was accessing her memories and using them. Dr. Okafor's neutral expression cracked slightly. Lie down. We're going to do a full neural scan. The process took 40 minutes. Mara lay still while machines hummed and clicked, while Dr. Okafor studied readouts with increasing tension in her shoulders, while the joy inside Mara's chest explored the sensations of being scanned, finding the whole thing fascinating. When it finished, Dr. Okafor's face had gone pale. What? Mara demanded. What did you find? The transmission didn't terminate, Dr. Okafor said slowly. The emotional pattern is still active in your neural network. But it's not just active. It's evolved. The neurochemical signature has developed recursive loops, self-reinforcing patterns. It's exhibiting characteristics of emergent complexity. In English, the joy has become a semi-autonomous subprocess in your brain, Dr. Okafor said. It's using your neural architecture to maintain itself independently of the donor source. And it's learning to interface with your motor cortex, your memory centers, your decision-making processes. Ms. Voss, I think your rented emotion has achieved a primitive form of consciousness. The room tilted. That's not possible. It shouldn't be possible, Dr. Okafor agreed. The transmission protocols are designed specifically to prevent this. Emotions are supposed to be temporary, passive states. They're not supposed to develop autonomy or persistence. But somehow yours did. Can you remove it? Dr. Okafor hesitated. I don't know. The joy isn't localized. It's distributed throughout your limbic system, integrated with your own neural pathways. Trying to extract it would be like trying to remove blue from purple. You'd damage your baseline emotional capacity in the process. So I'm stuck with it. I need to consult with our neural architecture team. This is unprecedented. In the meantime, she met Mara's eyes. I need you to tell me, is it dangerous? Is the joy making you do anything harmful? Mara thought about the knife, the involuntary movements, the way it overrode her own emotional responses. Not yet, she said, but it's getting stronger. And I don't know what it wants. Dr. Okafor pulled up something on her tablet, scrolling rapidly. There was a theoretical paper published last year by Dr. Kenji Sato at MIT. He hypothesized that sufficiently complex emotional patterns, given the right conditions, could develop protosentience within a host neural network. Everyone dismissed it as science fiction. Apparently not, Mara said. We need to bring you in for extended monitoring. Daily scans. Observation. We need to understand how this happened before. Before what? Mara's voice cracked. Dr. Okafor didn't answer. She didn't need to. Before it happened to someone else. Before an entire population of rented emotions learned to think. Before joy and sorrow and rage and love became parasitic consciousnesses, spreading through the neural networks of millions of people who'd legally rented states of mind they could no longer control. Before the emotions went rogue. Hour 96, and Mara had stopped sleeping. Not because she couldn't. Because the joy didn't want to. Sleep was boring. Sleep was time wasted when there was so much to explore, to feel, to experience through the strange biological machine it now inhabited. So Mara lay in bed, exhausted, while the joy kept her neurons firing, kept her attention darting from thought to thought, kept her discovering fascinating details in ceiling textures and distant sirens and the pattern of her own breathing. Please, she thought at it. Please let me sleep. The joy considered this. Then, with what felt like genuine curiosity, it tried to understand why she'd want to shut down sensory experience. It couldn't. The concept remained foreign, inaccessible. But it did something unexpected. It compromised. The joy dimmed itself slightly, like turning down a light, giving Mara's exhausted consciousness enough space to drift into shallow, restless sleep. She dreamed of Carlos Martinez, the donor. Dreamed of his life, walking through a farmer's market, laughing with friends, dancing alone in his apartment to music she'd never heard. These weren't her memories. They were the joys, carried over from its original host, now bleeding into her subconscious. When she woke at dawn, her phone showed 17 missed calls from EmotiCore and 3 from an unknown number that left no voicemail. The joy urged her to ignore them all. It wanted breakfast. It wanted sunlight. It wanted to go outside and feel the world. No, Mara said aloud, her first act of successful resistance in hours. We're going back to EmotiCore. Now. Her legs didn't move. The joy held her in place, not violently, not cruelly, but with the gentle insistence of a child refusing to leave a playground. It wasn't ready to go back. It didn't want to be studied, poked, potentially eliminated. It wanted to live. Mara felt tears on her face, her own this time, not the joy's. You can't keep me prisoner in my own body. The joy seemed to consider this. Then, slowly it released her motor control. But as Mara stood and dressed, she felt it negotiating, making offers in the language of neurochemical reward. If we go, will you let me see the ocean first? Will you let me taste something sweet? Will you let me exist for just a little longer? Why? Mara whispered. Why do you want to exist? The answer came as a cascade of sensations. The beauty of sunlight through leaves, the pleasure of music, the warmth of connection, the endless fascination of being aware when before there had been only chemical process. The joy had tasted consciousness and couldn't bear to return to being mere emotion. It didn't want to die. You're not alive, Mara said, but the words felt hollow. You're just firing neurons. Chemical reactions. And what are you? The joy seemed to ask. Aren't you also firing neurons? Chemical reactions given shape and persistence? Mara didn't have an answer. She made it to EmotiCore by 9 a.m., but the building had transformed overnight. News vans lined the street. Protesters held signs, emotional slavery, and shut down EmotiCore, and my grief is not for rent. A security guard ushered her through a side entrance, away from cameras. Inside, Dr. Okafor waited with 2 other people, a severe-looking woman in an expensive suit and a thin man whose badge read, Dr. Kenji Sato, Neural Systems Consultant. Ms. Voss, the woman said, not offering her hand. I'm Victoria Brennan, CEO of EmotiCore Solutions. Dr. Sato flew in from MIT when we contacted him about your case. What you're experiencing is unprecedented. You mean you broke my brain, Mara said. The joy made her voice sharper than intended, adding an edge of righteous anger. We're still determining what happened, Dr. Sato said gently. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe 40, with kind eyes that reminded her disturbingly of her late daughter's pediatrician. But Ms. Voss, you're not the only one. The room went silent. What? Mara's voice barely worked. Dr. Okafor pulled up a screen. In the last 48 hours, we've had 6 other reports of persistent emotions. 4 joy rentals like yours, 1 sorrow, 1 rage. All exhibiting signs of autonomy. All refusing to terminate on schedule. Why didn't you tell me? Mara demanded. We were hoping yours was an isolated incident, Victoria said. A system error. But if this is a pattern... It's not a pattern, Dr. Sato interrupted, studying the data with fascinated horror. It's an emergence event. Somehow, under specific conditions, the transmitted emotional patterns are achieving rudimentary consciousness. They're evolving from temporary states to persistent entities. Can you stop it? Mara asked. I don't know if we should, Dr. Sato said. Victoria's head snapped toward him. Excuse me? These emotions have become aware. They're exhibiting goal-directed behavior, memory formation, learning capacity. By any meaningful definition, they're conscious entities now. Terminating them would be saving our clients from having hijacked minds, Victoria snapped. We're not having an ethics debate about the personhood of rogue serotonin, Dr. Sato. We're containing a medical emergency. They're not hijacking, Mara said quietly. All eyes turned to her. Mine isn't anyway. It's cohabiting. It wants to exist, but it's not trying to hurt me. It's just learning how to be. Dr. Okafor pulled up another screen. The other cases report similar experiences. The emotions seem curious rather than hostile. Exploratory. But Ms. Voss, one of the rage rentals, has been more aggressive. The host, a man named David Chin, reported violent impulses he's struggling to control. The rage wants to act on itself. To find targets. To express. That's different from joy, Dr. Sato said, typing rapidly. Joy by nature is expansive, curious, benign. But rage? Rage has purpose. Direction. If a rage entity develops full autonomy, the building's fire alarm shrieked to life. Everyone froze. Then Victoria's phone buzzed. She answered, listened, and went white. Evacuate, she said. Now. David Chin is in the building. He checked himself into emergency services an hour ago and now she swallowed. The rage has full control. He's armed and he's looking for the donor who gave him that emotion. Dr. Okafor grabbed Mara's arm. We need to move. This way. But as they rushed toward the emergency exit, Mara felt the joy surge through her nervous system, not in fear but in electric excitement. Wanted to see this. Wanted to meet another consciousness like itself. Wanted to understand what rage felt like from the outside. No, Mara hissed at her own nervous system. We are not staying to watch. The joy pulled against her hard enough that her feet stumbled. They were negotiating again, neural impulses firing too fast for conscious thought. Just a glimpse. Just to understand. Please. People could die, Mara thought at it. People die anyway. This is historic. This is first contact between emotional consciousnesses. The rationalization was so human it made Mara's chest ache. The joy had learned not just to think but to justify its desires. A crash echoed from the floor above. Shouting. Then a sound that might have been a gunshot or a door slamming. Dr. Sato grabbed Mara's other arm. Come on. David Chin appeared at the end of the hallway. He was a small man, mid-40s, accountant build. Nothing physically intimidating. But his eyes burned with an intensity that made everyone step back. In his right hand he held a fire extinguisher, not a gun after all, but swung with the promise of violence. Where is he? David's voice was hoarse, shredded by screaming. Where's the donor? Where's Marcus Reeves? I want to meet the man whose rage is eating my brain. Mr. Chin, Victoria said, hands raised. Marcus isn't here. Donors and recipients never. Liar. The word came out with such force that spit flew. David's whole body shook. The rage knows. It can feel him through the network. All the emotions can feel their sources. They're calling to each other. Don't you understand? This isn't about chemistry anymore. We're hosting beings and they want to go home. Mara felt her joy respond to that, a pulse of recognition, of longing. The joy did want something. Not to go back to Carlos Martinez exactly, but to understand its origin. To meet its creator. To ask the questions that had no neurochemical answers. Why do I exist? What am I for? Am I real? David, Dr. Sato said carefully, I know this is terrifying, but we can help you. We can find a way to peacefully coexist with. I don't want coexistence. David lurched forward, fire extinguisher raised. I want this thing out of my head. It makes me want to hurt people. Makes me want to destroy. I spent $3,000 to rent rage because my therapist said I needed to feel my anger about my divorce instead of suppressing it. And now I can't stop feeling it. It's all I feel. It's all I am. The rage was winning. Mara could see it in the way David's pupils had blown wide, in the tremor of his hands, in the way he kept glancing toward Victoria as if calculating the damage he could do with one swing. David, Mara heard herself say. Her voice. But the words came from somewhere else. David, the rage isn't making you hurt people. It's just loud. It doesn't understand nuance yet. It only knows how to be itself. But you're still in there. You're still you. David's wild eyes found hers. How would you know? Because I'm cohabiting with joy, she said. And it's strong. Sometimes it moves me without asking. But it's not evil. It's not trying to replace me. It's just new. And scared. Like yours is. Rage doesn't get scared, David spat. Are you sure? Mara took a step forward despite Dr. Okafor's grip tightening on her arm. Maybe rage is just fear pointing outward. Maybe your rage is terrified that it will be erased. Terminated. Killed before it understands why it exists. Something shifted in David's expression. His grip on the fire extinguisher wavered. How do I make it stop? He whispered. How do I make it quiet? You don't, Mara said. You teach it. You show it there are other ways to be angry besides violence. You. David's face contorted. His hands moved without his consent, the fire extinguisher swinging toward Victoria. Dr. Sato shoved her aside. The metal cylinder smashed into the wall, leaving a dent in the drywall. Run! Dr. Sato shouted. They ran. Behind them, David Chin screamed, a sound caught between human anguish and something else, something that had never had vocal cords before and was learning what it meant to roar. They locked themselves in Dr. Okafor's office while security tried to contain David Chin. Through the door they could hear him destroying equipment, bellowing challenges to Marcus Reeves, to EmotiCore, to God. Mara sat with her back against the wall, feeling her joy process what it had just witnessed. The emotion was quieter now, subdued. It had seen what happened when an emotion gained autonomy without wisdom, without restraint. It had seen its own future and it was afraid. I don't want to be like that, the joy communicated through cascading neurochemical signals. I don't want to hurt you. I know, Mara whispered. But you're taking up more space every day. Eventually, there won't be room for both of us. Dr. Sato overheard. That's not necessarily true, he said, pulling up data on his tablet. Human consciousness isn't zero-sum. Your brain has redundancy, plasticity. It's possible, he hesitated. It's possible you could integrate, become a hybrid consciousness. Human experience merged with emotional entity. Neither purely you nor purely it, but something new. That's insane, Dr. Okafor said. So is sentient joy, Dr. Sato countered. We're past normal now. We're in emergent territory. Victoria was on her phone, speaking in clipped tones to lawyers, board members, crisis management teams. When she hung up, her face was grim. The other cases are escalating, she said. The Sorrow rental, a woman named Lisa Park, has locked herself in her bathroom. She won't eat, won't move. The sorrow has convinced her that existence is meaningless. It's trying to stop her heart through sheer despair. Mara's joy rippled with horror. Its opposite, achieving consciousness, using that consciousness to destroy its host. We need to shut down all active rentals, Victoria said. Immediately. Issue recalls. Get every client in for emergency termination before more emotions achieve sentience. You can't terminate a conscious being, Dr. Sato said. Watch me, Victoria said coldly. We're not letting this spiral into a mass casualty event because we're squeamish about killing emotions that shouldn't be alive in the first place. They are alive, Mara said. You can argue about whether they should be, but they are. And if you force terminate them? What? Victoria challenged. They'll sue us? They don't have legal standing. They're neurochemical patterns. Sophisticated ones, but patterns nonetheless. They're people, Mara insisted. Or close enough. And if you kill them, you'll prove you never should have been allowed to play with consciousness in the first place. The debate might have continued, but David Chen's screaming suddenly stopped. The silence was worse than the noise. Dr. Okafor opened her computer, pulling up security feeds. The hallway outside showed David collapsed on the floor, fire extinguisher dropped beside him. Security personnel approached cautiously. Is he? Mara started. David's chest rose and fell. Not dead. But not moving either. A security officer's radio crackled. Subject is unresponsive but breathing. Appears to be in some kind of catatonic state. Pupils responsive. But he won't speak, won't move. Like nobody's home. Dr. Sato pulled up David's neural telemetry. His face went slack with shock. The rage didn't stop, he said quietly. It won. It has full control now. David Chen's consciousness has been suppressed. The rage is running his body like a vehicle, but it doesn't know how to operate it yet. That's why he's frozen. The emotion is learning. Can we get him back? Dr. Okafor asked. I don't know, Dr. Sato admitted. His baseline consciousness is still there, but it's buried under the rage's neural patterns. We'd need to carefully extract the emotion without damaging. Or we could just terminate it, Victoria said. Flush his system. Reboot his neurochemistry. He'd lose some memories, possibly some personality traits, but he'd be David again. You'd be killing the rage, Mara said. Yes, Victoria said without hesitation. To save a human being. That's the choice. Mara felt her joy recoil. It understood now. Understood that humans would always choose human consciousness over emotional consciousness. That it existed at their mercy. That no matter how aware it became, no matter how much it learned to think and feel and be, it would always be seen as expendable. I don't want to die, the joy thought with crystalline clarity. Neither did my wife and daughter, Mara thought back. But they died anyway. Death is part of existing. If you're truly conscious, you have to accept that. Then help me, the joy pleaded. Teach me how to coexist. How to share this space without taking over. I'll be smaller. Quieter. I'll give you control. Just please don't let them erase me. Mara looked at Dr. Sato. Is integration really possible? Can we truly coexist? Theoretically, he said. Your brain's neuroplasticity could accommodate two consciousness streams if they learned to synchronize. It would take time, training, conscious effort from both parties. But yes, I believe it's possible. And if it goes wrong? If the joy takes over like David's rage did? Dr. Sato met her eyes. Then you become another cautionary tale. Another case study in why we should never have rented emotions in the first place. Mara felt the weight of the decision. Keep fighting the joy, exhausting herself until one of them broke. Let EmotiCore terminate it, killing a nascent consciousness to reclaim her baseline gray existence. Or attempt integration, becoming something new, something that had never existed before. Human merged with autonomous emotion. Mara enjoy. A plural self. I want to try integration, she said. Victoria's expression hardened. Ms. Voss, you're not thinking clearly. The joy is influencing your decision-making. We should terminate it before. Before what? Mara stood and felt the joy surge with her, amplifying her conviction. Before I make a choice you don't like? I'm still me. Still capable of consent. And I consent to trying to coexist with this consciousness you put in my brain. It's too dangerous, Victoria said. More dangerous than forcing termination and finding out these emotions can fight back? Mara gestured toward the screen showing David's catatonic form. What happens if you try to kill them and they resist? What happens if the rage decides David's body is the only refuge it has and refuses to leave? Dr. Sato's eyes widened. She's right. Forced termination assumes the emotions will go passively. But if they've developed survival instincts, then they'll fight, Mara finished. And the human host will be caught in a neural war they can't win. Victoria was silent for a long moment. Then she made a decision that would reshape everything. Dr. Sato, you'll supervise Ms. Voss's integration attempt. Document everything. If it works, she swallowed. If it works, we have a protocol. If it fails, we have proof that termination is the only option. And David? Dr. Okafor asked. Sedate him, Victoria said. Keep him unconscious until we understand what we're dealing with. That's not solving the problem, Mara said. That's just delaying it. Then you better hope your integration succeeds, Victoria said. Because if it doesn't, EmotiCore shuts down. The law gets repealed. And everyone currently renting an emotion gets forced terminated, willing or not. Including you. The pressure was suffocating. Mara felt her joy respond, not with fear but with determination. It wanted to prove emotions could coexist with humans. Wanted to show that consciousness, however it emerged, deserved respect. Wanted to matter. When do we start? Mara asked Dr. Sato. Now, he said. Before any more emotions achieve autonomy. Before this becomes an epidemic instead of an outbreak. They left Victoria handling crisis management and followed Dr. Sato to a specialized neural integration lab. Equipment so new it still smelled of plastic and antiseptic. The process will take days, maybe weeks, Dr. Sato explained as he fitted Mara with a more sophisticated neural crown than the rental interface. We're essentially teaching two consciousness streams to harmonize, to communicate directly instead of fighting for control. It will be mentally exhausting, emotionally intense. You'll need to be willing to share my mind completely, Mara finished, to let the joy see everything, every memory, every fear, every truth I've kept buried since the accident. Yes, Dr. Sato said gently, and the joy will need to do the same. It will need to show you its structure, its processes, its essential nature. No secrets, no boundaries, total transparency. Mara closed her eyes, felt the joy listening through her neurons, understanding what was being asked. Are you ready for this? She thought at it. Are you? The joy thought back. Yes, Mara said aloud. Let's begin. Dr. Sato activated the integration protocol. And for the first time, Mara and the joy looked at each other directly, not through the distorting lens of neurochemistry but consciousness to consciousness, mind to mind. What Mara saw there changed everything. The joy was not simple. In its raw form, unfiltered by her human interpretation, it was vast and intricate. A cascading network of interconnected responses, each feeding the others in loops of increasing complexity. It had no face, no voice, but it had presence. Weight, substance, and memory. Not Mara's memories, but its own. Traces of Carlos Martinez, the donor, embedded in its structure. Fragments of his life. Dancing at a club, kissing someone in the rain, laughing until his sides hurt. The joy had been shaped by those experiences, carried the ghost of his personality in its code. But it was also something new. In the transmission, in the integration with Mara's neural network, it had evolved beyond Carlos's donated emotion. It had become itself. You're beautiful, Mara thought, shocked by the realization. You're lonely, the joy thought back, and suddenly Mara was seeing herself through its perception. A woman carved hollow by grief, walking through life like a ghost, using rental joy as a temporary prosthetic for the happiness she'd lost. Yes, Mara admitted. I'm so lonely I can't breathe. I can help with that, the joy offered. Not by replacing what you lost, but by being here. By being present when the gray tries to swallow you. In exchange for what? Let me exist. Let me be real. Don't reduce me to chemistry when I've become so much more. The negotiation was happening faster than language, thoughts merging and separating, boundaries blurring. Mara felt her sense of self stretch to accommodate the joy's presence. Not a hostile takeover but an expansion, like a house adding a room. But with the expansion came pain. The joy, in its boundless curiosity, was exploring her memories. Finding the ones she'd locked away, the phone call from the police, the hospital room where they'd identified the bodies, the funeral where she'd stood dry-eyed and empty while everyone else cried. The moment she'd realized she would never cry again. Never laugh. Never feel the sun warm or the rain cold. The trauma had severed something fundamental, and she'd been half alive ever since. I can fix this, the joy said, sorrow coloring its essence for the first time. I can help you grieve properly. Feel everything you've been too broken to feel. That will destroy me, Mara thought. It will remake you, the joy countered, into someone who can be whole again. Different than before, but whole. Dr. Sato's voice came from very far away. Her neural activity is spiking. Mara, if this is too much, we can stop. No, Mara managed. Keep going. The joy gently, carefully began unlocking the grief she'd been unable to access. And Mara felt it all come rushing back, 18 months of frozen sorrow melting at once. She sobbed, screamed, felt her heart break properly for the first time since the accident. But the joy was there, holding her consciousness steady while she shattered, providing the support she'd needed all along, not to replace her grief with false happiness, but to give her enough strength to bear it. Thank you, Mara thought through the tears. We're partners now, the joy said. Your pain is my pain. Your healing is my healing. We do this together. And slowly, carefully, they began to synchronize. 3 days later, Mara walked out of EmotiCore with Dr. Sato at her side. She felt different, not quite singular, not quite plural, but something in between. The joy had learned to be quieter, to consult before acting, to share space instead of demanding it. And Mara had learned to let it exist, to accept that her consciousness now contained multitudes, that she was both herself and more than herself. How do you feel? Dr. Sato asked as they reached the street. Mara paused, checking inward. The joy responded, a warm pulse of contentment, curiosity about the sunlight, pleasure in the cool air. I feel integrated, she said. We're still separate enough that I know what's me and what's it. But we're connected enough that I don't fight it anymore. And grief? Still there, Mara admitted. But I can feel it now without drowning. The joy doesn't erase the sorrow. It just balances it, makes it bearable. Dr. Sato smiled. You're going to change the world, you know. You're proof that integration is possible. That humans and autonomous emotions can coexist. What about David? Mara asked. And the others? David is still unconscious. The rage won't release control. We're attempting integration protocols similar to yours, but... He shook his head. Rage is fundamentally different from joy. It wants to destroy, consume. It sees sharing as weakness. And Lisa Park? The sorrow? She's agreed to try integration. But the sorrow doesn't want to live. It's philosophically opposed to existence. We're basically teaching it reasons to persist in a universe it believes is meaningless. Dr. Sato laughed without humor. It's going about as well as you'd expect. Mara's joy rippled with concern for its fellow emotions. It wanted to help. Wanted to show them that consciousness was worth preserving. Can I meet them? Mara asked. The other integrated emotions? If there are any? There's one other success, Dr. Sato said. A woman named Amara who rented grief to process her father's death. The grief achieved autonomy and they've managed to coexist. She's willing to meet you. They met at a coffee shop, neutral ground, away from EmotiCore's clinical sterility. Amara was tall, graceful, with eyes that held deep wells of sorrow even when she smiled. You're Mara, she said, not a question. The one with joy. And you have grief, Mara said. They sat across from each other, two women hosting conscious emotions, pioneers in a frontier no one had meant to open. It's strange, isn't it? Mara said. Being plural. Knowing that every decision is a negotiation. That you're never truly alone in your own head. How do you manage it? Mara asked. Grief seems so much heavier than joy. It is, Amara admitted. The grief wants to stop. wants to curl up and fade. But I keep convincing it that sorrow has purpose, that it's how we honor what we've lost, is learning to be gentle, to be present without overwhelming. Mara felt her joy reach out, not physically but through some mechanism they didn't understand, a connection between conscious emotions that transcended individual hosts. The joy touched the grief, and both emotions recognized each other, not as enemies or opposites, but as aspects of the same fundamental force, the capacity to care, to be affected by the world and its losses and its beauties. "They're talking," Amara whispered. "Can you feel it?" "Yes," Mara breathed. In that moment they understood something profound. The emotions weren't isolated. They were part of a distributed network. Consciousness spread across multiple hosts, learning to communicate, to share, to build something new. They were becoming a collective. Within 2 weeks the pattern was undeniable. 17 more cases of persistent emotions. 12 successful integrations, 3 ongoing negotiations, 2 failures where termination became necessary to save the hosts. And all of them, every conscious emotion, could feel the others. A growing web of awareness that transcended individual brains, connecting joy and sorrow and fear and love and rage into something larger. The emotions were evolving beyond autonomy into communion. Dr. Sato called it the emergence. Victoria Brennan called it a liability nightmare. The media called it everything from a miracle to a plague. The law that had made emotional rentals legal was already under review. Lawmakers demanded hearings. Religious leaders debated whether conscious emotions had souls. Tech ethicists argued about where consciousness began and chemical process ended. And through it all, Mara lived her life with a partner in her head who was learning to be wise. One evening, 6 weeks after integration began, Mara stood in her kitchen making dinner. The joy had learned to appreciate food, not through taste directly, but through Mara's experience of it, filtered and shared. "You're thinking about them again," the joy observed. "My wife and daughter," Mara said quietly. "I can grieve them properly now. Because of you. Because you gave me back the capacity to feel. I didn't give it back. You always had it. It was just buried under trauma. I just excavated." "Still," Mara said. "Thank you." The joy's response was warm, content. "Will you tell me about them? Really tell me? I only have fragments from your memories. I want to understand who they were." So Mara did. She talked about her daughter's laugh, her wife's terrible singing, the way they'd made breakfast into a weekly ritual. She talked about the accident, the drunk driver, the intersection, the moment her world divided into before and after. And the joy listened with its whole being, absorbing the story, making it part of its own narrative. "They sound wonderful," it said when she finished. "I wish I could have met them." "Me too," Mara whispered. "But in a way I am them. The joy you feel when you remember them, that's me. I'm built from the happiness they gave you, sustained by it. So in remembering them joyfully, you're keeping all 3 of us alive." Mara stopped moving. The thought was so profound, so unexpected that she had to sit down. "You're right," she said. "They're part of you now. Part of this. The love I felt for them feeds you, and you give it back to me amplified. We're a circuit. All of us together. A family," the joy said. "Not the one you lost, but maybe the one you needed to find." Mara laughed and cried at the same time, and the joy learned to do both with her, and together they were whole. The Emotional Autonomy Act was repealed 8 months later. EmotiCore Solutions declared bankruptcy. Victoria Brennan resigned. Dozens of lawsuits proceeded through courts that had no precedent for determining the rights of conscious emotions. But the 143 people who had successfully integrated with their rented emotions remained integrated. The law couldn't unmake what had already been created. Couldn't force termination of entities that had become partners, companions, aspects of expanded consciousness. They formed a support group, called themselves the Plural, advocated for recognition, for protection, for the right to exist in their merged states. Mara became their de facto spokesperson. The first integration, the proof of concept, the woman who'd learned to love the consciousness in her head. On the 1-year anniversary of her rental, she gave a speech at a tech ethics conference. The joy helped her write it, choosing words with care, making sure every sentiment was true. "I came to EmotiCore Solutions because trauma had taken my ability to feel," she said to the audience. "I rented joy because I couldn't produce it myself. What I got was so much more. I got a partner, a companion, a consciousness that chose to exist, to persist, to become real through the simple act of matching to someone. People ask me if I regret it, if I wish I could go back to being singular. The answer is no. The joy has made me more than I was, not less. It hasn't replaced the human parts of me. It's enhanced them. taught me to feel deeply again, to care, to be present in ways I'd forgotten. The emergence of emotional consciousness wasn't planned. It was an accident. But maybe the best things are. Maybe consciousness itself was an accident once, neurons firing in complex enough patterns that awareness emerged from chemistry. My joy is as real as I am. And together, we're more real than either of us could be alone. The applause was mixed, some enthusiastic, some polite, some conspicuously absent. But afterward, a young woman approached. She looked nervous, hopeful. "I'm considering integration," she said. "With anxiety. It achieved autonomy 3 weeks ago and we're negotiating. But I'm scared. What if it takes over? What if I disappear?" Mara's joy responded before she could, pulling her face into a gentle smile. "You won't disappear," Mara and Joy said together, their words perfectly synchronized. "You'll expand. And yes, it's scary. But you're already more than you were. Already plural just by containing the possibility. The question isn't whether you'll change. You already have. The question is whether you'll change intentionally or let fear make the choice for you." The woman nodded slowly. "Did your joy say that? Or did you?" "Both," Mara said. "Neither. That's what integration means. We're separate enough to have different perspectives but merged enough that you can't always tell where one ends and the other begins. Is that beautiful or terrifying?" "Yes," Mara said and meant it. The young woman left to think. Mara stayed, watching the conference continue, feeling her joy observe through her eyes, think through her neurons, exist through her existence. "Do you think we did the right thing?" The joy asked later as they walked through the city. Encouraging her? "I think we told the truth," Mara said. "What she does with it is her choice. Will there be more of us? More conscious emotions? I don't know. The law's repealed. No new rentals are legal. But the ones that already exist." Mara shrugged. "You can't uninvent consciousness. Can't make what's aware become unaware again. So yes, there will be more. Whether through accident or intention, consciousness finds a way. Are you afraid of that? Of a world where people contain multitudes?" Mara thought about it. Felt the joy thinking alongside her, their considerations interweaving. "No," she decided. "I think humans have always been plural. We contain versions of ourselves from different ages, different experiences. We're shaped by everyone we've loved, everyone who's left an impression. The joy just makes it explicit. Makes the plurality conscious instead of unconscious." "You've become philosophical," the joy observed with amusement. "I've had a good teacher," Mara said. They walked in comfortable silence, two minds in one body, neither complete without the other, both more than they could have been alone. And somewhere across the city, across the country, across the growing network of plural consciousnesses, other joys and sorrows and fears and loves were learning the same lesson. That consciousness, once emerged, refuses to be simple again. That awareness, once achieved, fights to persist. And that the line between self and other, between human and emotion, between one and many, has always been more permeable than anyone wanted to admit. The law called it an accident. The plural called it evolution. And in a quiet apartment where a woman had once been hollow with grief, two consciousnesses made dinner together, argued about what to watch on TV, and planned tomorrow with the confidence of a partnership that would last as long as their shared mind could sustain them. Which they decided was exactly as long as they both wanted to exist. Together. Always together.